Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Karina from the Matura Express team for English. Tonight's topic is tolerant, and me and my partner, we will be doing 2 trial exams. Okay, so welcome back after this very short intro. Those of you who are online already out there, I think in the stream thing as such in YouTube, it gives you a different topic. But as the insert in the beginning said, tonight's topic is definitely going to be about tolerance. There will be 2 trial exams, so me and Tibna, we will try and cover as many aspects as we can of the topic of racism, and we will also talk about ethnic minorities, which is the same topic but from a different angle kind of thing. Trying to talk about ethnic minorities in Austria, as there are a good many of them, but also ethnic minorities in other countries. America, for example, would lend itself quite nicely as an example at the moment. First off, as you see in my Word file, after the exams, I will try and tell you what I liked about the exams and what I did not like about the exams. If there's something that I didn't like, or that I noticed, or that I think could need some improvement. In your oral exams, you will be given grades, or points rather, it's a 10-point scale. You will be given points from 0 to 10 in those 4 categories basically. So first of all, the first criteria that you will get points on is Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung, task achievement in English. So you can basically get points from 0, which means, well, you did not fulfill the task at all, you did not touch upon the bullet points, you did not stick to your role, not the rule, sorry. So Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung, task achievement is mainly about whether or not you covered all the points that you were supposed to cover in your exams. So in the monologue part, the bullet points that you have, and also in the dialogue part, the rough guidelines that you have. The next one is Flüssigkeit und Interaktion, fluency in interaction, FLIN, as it's abbreviated on the interlocutor sheets, the Beurteilungsbögen for the people who are examining you. Fluency is quite obvious. Fluency in the monologue, so was it a coherent text? Did you deliver a coherent speech? Did you give a coherent presentation? But also fluency in terms of, like, was there no communication breakdown between you and the interlocutor or the interlocutors if there's more than one person asking questions? Interaction goes in that direction as well. So was it real dialogue in part 2 of the exam? Were you answering questions? Did you actively ask questions as well, because that's part of the interaction? Then we have this Spektrum gesprochene Sprache, the range of vocabulary. So whether or not you know your vocab well, or if it's all like, you know, trying to kind of pass the exam knowing, I don't know, 50 words that you keep repeating kind of thing. So spectrum basically means how broad is your vocabulary, how many words do you know, how many words can you actually use or do you use, and in the first point, how accurate, how correct are they? Richtigkeit gesprochener Sprache, in English, accuracy of spoken interaction or spoken language. So I guess at the end of the day, just knowing the vocab is not enough. You also have to use it correctly. And yeah, that's what you will be given points on. Next time I will show you the interlocutor, like the A4 sheet of paper. I will show you what the interlocutor sheet looks like. For tonight, this will do. I will then, in my analysis of her exam, I will then try and, you know, include the aspects here. Was it fluent? Was there interaction? Was there a broad spectrum of vocab? Was it used correctly? And did she talk about all the things that I wanted her to talk about? Yeah, I think that's it. If you're ready.
I am. Let me just... It's a bit new here, but oh no, that's not the right one.
Why did I change stuff?
Is it? Why is it not this one? Let me see. Oh, maybe it's this one. Ah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. Welcome back.
Oh, actually, I should show them the task. Can you once again?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Oops. Well, but now you know her, for those of you who haven't been following us in the last couple of weeks, as it was holidays and so on and so forth. You know the layout of the question paper anyway. So, first of all, she will have to think about a personality, like she can't really be her real self. She has to kind of adopt a fake persona because she will be asked questions about her career and her future plans. So as to not make it all too repetitive, she can't really be the person she really is. The situation, you were in school, or she was in school, doing history classes, and in history classes there was ethnic minorities, like a topic. And like she, in this case, needed a presentation topic for English anyway, and decided to talk about it. Also because there's a lot of discussion about ethnic minorities going on at the moment. It's always kind of like being discussed in Austria, severely discussed or heavily discussed in America at the moment, of course. So that's her situation. Then I want to know what an ethnic minority is, of course. What's the situation like in Austria? Ethnic minorities in like present day sense, like what ethnic minorities are there. There's also statistics to go with this question, but also more specifically, basically the original like ethnic minorities in Austria. I guess there's a difference between immigrants nowadays and like proper ethnic minorities, like established ethnic minorities, like the Croats in Carinthia, for example. They would, of course, not be considered immigrants anymore because they've been there ever since, basically. But then there's also ethnic minorities who kind of started as a refugee movement or as a like immigration movement, but kind of turned into ethnic minorities. So it's a quite broad topic. Good for you, or good for her in that case, because it can include pretty much everything, you know. A general attitude. What conflicts are there? There's this, those of you who follow the media, or those of you who are a bit older, I guess, you may remember the place name signs in Carinthia was a big discussion whether or not they should be in Slovenian, in Croatian and Slovenian really, or if it's only German because it's Austria's like territory, whatever. Discussions about language, should everyone be bilingual? Is it enough to only speak one language? Whatever. And the information that the statistics give you, which are here. These are basically the countries of origin for the most like populous ethnic minorities in Austria. In German, because Austria is not important enough so as to publish that many statistics in English, really. So in the exams you could actually encounter information, sources of information in German. This is one example of this. And then we're gonna talk about the benefits of a multi-ethnic society. There's a text to go with it. So why is it good to have as many nationalities in a country as you can, really? There is a lot of benefits, even though some people would probably disagree with me on that, but living in a multi-ethnic society and living in a multicultural society definitely does have a lot of advantages. And some general questions about the topic. So,
Switch back?
Please. I'm pretty sure that now is the time. Is that different than to what it was?
Maybe, I'm not sure. Okay. Everything is different today.
Okay. Well, anyway. So, I have nothing to write on, which is bad because I need I need to write down your mistakes.
You don't have to.
Well, I kind of have to point them out to the broader audience out there, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so, if you're ready.
I am, yeah.
Well then, please, so, good evening. You are here for your A-levels tonight.
I am.
Would you mind to quickly introduce yourself, please?
So my name is Susie, and I am a hairdresser. Actually, I'm a trained hairdresser.
Very nice. So why the A-levels? Is the hairdressing business not going that well anymore?
It is, but I'm feeling that I might want to get some higher education and study at university maybe. So that's why I'm thinking that the A-levels would be a good idea.
So that sounds like a very good plan actually. And yeah, you have undertaken a very difficult task tonight because you have decided to talk about ethnic minorities because you heard about it in history class.
Exactly.
So for those of us who are not so familiar with the concept, what is an ethnic minority?
Well, an ethnic minority in general is in a country a group of people that is not like the natives or that came to that country from somewhere else and is now staying there and living there and just going about their life in a different country now. And that's what an ethnic minority is usually. That's what it is usually. I'm sorry, I just lost my breath there for a second. In Austria there actually have always been ethnic minorities somewhere. Because the country is so small, there's lots of different cultures kind of flowing in from other countries. And especially people from former Yugoslavia, for example Croatia and Serbia, have been coming to Austria to work here for a long time, which is actually the background of my family. So my mom is Serbian and her parents came here in the 60s, 70s to work, and they just decided to stay because it was kind of nice and their kids came as well, and they just they have their whole life here now, and it's like they've always been here. And that's how it is for many people. And nowadays there's more and more different cultures coming to Austria for our good economy, for our good social system, and that can have some negative impacts on the natives that are living here, because they might feel like they get overpowered by all these strangers. They might have a bit of a fear of the unknown, and that's where a lot of conflicts can really start, and that's where you really have to realize that both sides have to work hard to be able to live next to each other. That of course always depends on how different a culture is to Austria in our case, for example. So it can be easier or harder for some people. For example, for people from maybe Africa or more eastern countries that are more far away, that come here to work or to have a better life, it can be easier for them to immigrate because they're more different, their culture is more different, their habits are more different, and so on and so forth. So as I said, many Serbians, Croatians, and so on and so forth from all of the countries basically surrounding Austria are coming here, which is also what is shown in these statistics here. And actually, one thing that I haven't talked about yet is that most of the immigrants in Austria, or the biggest kind of ethnic minority, are actually German, which people often don't think about them as an ethnic minority, but they are. It's not their country here, but there's a lot of Germans here working and living, and that's, I think, quite a funny or a fun fact that people often forget. And then we can see lots of people from former Yugoslavia, people also from Poland, people from Turkey. So really lots of different nationalities that we have here in Austria that really live there and have their families there, their life there. And I think it's a great thing. Any questions?
why do you, like, as you pointed out, the German ethnic minority, why do we not perceive them as foreigners?
Well,
like, it's not their country, as you said.
Yeah,
like,
of course. I think mainly because, of course, they speak our language, kind of, and they're not very different from us in, like, it's basically the same culture, or very, very similar culture. They have the same religion, they have very similar kind of beliefs, and just in general a very similar country to ours.
Why do, like, there are, as you said, there are ethnic minorities because of our neighboring countries, and in places like Carinthia and the Burgenland, for example, they would probably consider themselves Croats, but living in Austria.
Yeah.
Why do we perceive them as an ethnic minority? Even like they are Austrians, really. Like,
maybe because of their language again. Maybe because they have a different language. But then again, I'm not sure. Since I don't really know this, or I haven't really been there and seen the situation myself. I can't really say. But I think maybe it's just the language, because otherwise they're pretty much like ourselves, aren't they?
So you would...
Maybe the names as well.
Probably. If I get you right, you would pinpoint language as a, decisive aspect.
Yeah, because it can be a big barrier between people.
So you would say, knowing the language is
a very big thing, yeah. Yeah.
Can you think of any other countries where ethnic minorities are, a little mistreated at the moment?
Well, you of course always think of the US in this situation, with Mexicans and not only Mexicans, but like every country around the world has an ethnic minority in the US, and they're kind of not in a very good situation right now over there, so it's kind of, I think, very difficult for them.
Would you, last question on this, like, you mentioned people from Slovenia, Slovakia, Hungary, Croats, wherever. They are ethnic minorities, obviously, and people from Turkey and so on and so forth, because they have a long history of like settlement in Austria. What's the difference between immigration and ethnic minority in your case? Like, would you consider the people that came, all the people from Syria and so on and so forth, would you consider them immigrants or an ethnic minority already?
I think it's difficult to say, but I feel like, as you just said, it's depends on time, or it's a matter of time. So if there's an ethnic minority here in Austria that has been there for centuries or for years, and we've kind of gotten used to them, then that's an ethnic minority. But I think we haven't quite gotten used to so many people from Syria being here, as is shown in our behavior, I feel like, and that's the difference, I think.
Okay. So, as I said in the beginning, I guess there are a lot of things that, like, I always felt, or I always feel that knowing people from other countries is a good thing. Why, or what benefits do you see in the whole thing? Like, I always, appreciated people from other countries. Why is it a good thing?
Well, for one, people from other countries have other cultures and other beliefs and other views of the world. And it's always really interesting to see a different view than your own, and maybe realize that, that's how that is, and that's how they see that. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, it's just a different thing. And you can kind of acknowledge that there's different views, and not one view is right, not one view is wrong, but we're just different, and you can kind of tolerate each other a bit better, I feel like.
That's definitely an issue. What about languages? Would you, like, Tyrol doesn't really have any ethnic minorities where you could, but there has been discussions about doing Turkish lessons in school, because the Turkish ethnic minority is quite strong. There is people who have to know Slovenian and Croatian in like border areas. Would you have been willing to learn an ethnic minority language if you had to while you were still in school?
Yes, of course. I think the thing with the language is, for example, in Carinthia, it's okay, or it makes sense to me, because it's like their country is there, like it's next to our country, so it makes sense that the languages will flow over. But for example, with Turkish people, I feel like it's their country is so far away that it doesn't really make sense to me to have their language as kind of a second language or in school. But I don't know, maybe that's just how I feel. So it really depends, but I definitely wouldn't be opposed to learning Turkish or any other language.
I think it would be an interesting...
Yeah, definitely.
Be an interesting language to learn. Do you think that it also brings more tolerance? Like would...
Language?
Or immigration and language in general.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think that we are a very tolerant country now, but will it come eventually?
I think it will, and I think it does. And I'm not sure, but I think maybe when all the Croatians and Serbians and so on came over, we might not have really liked them that much, and now we really quite tolerate them. There's not really that much negative feeling against them, and maybe that's how it will be with the people that are coming here now. So I think over time you kind of get used to the fact that there's a different culture living next to you, and they don't hurt you. They just basically only bring positive things usually to your life, and that's how you can realize that that's really no harm in tolerating them.
Are you generally a person who is interested in like other cultures and how things are?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Would you ask people about, I don't know, religion, politics?
Yeah, I'm very interested.
Whatever.
The only thing is that I'm not sure whether it's okay to ask somebody something or whether it's kind of a bit too in their face or kind of a bit too, I don't know. But I definitely am very interested in how other people think and feel and what their view is, because it makes you understand so much more what's going on in the world. Right?
So we could probably say that the whole thing is is a good thing because it brings understanding.
Definitely.
And a bit more tolerance.
Definitely.
Well then, let's let that be the message that goes out to the world.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So, the 15-minute speaking time are always up ridiculously quickly. Going back to my great slide on the criteria. I start from the bottom. I forgot the word. Well, there is no, in this case, like as she is a professional, there is of course not much to say about the Richtigkeit gesprochener Sprache, accuracy in language. Of course, she did totally fulfill this point. Same with the spectrum of spoken language. There was no like repetitions or anything. Fluency and interaction did of course go quite well too. Maybe there could have been a bit more questions going on. She was trying, but I guess it's quite hard to like talk against me because I'm a very talkative person and I always ask questions anyway. So I'm like,
It's definitely really hard to kind of ask questions or remember to ask questions. Yeah, I feel like
that's the thing.
Yeah,
thanks for pointing
really
that out.
have to remember that.
I don't know if you heard out there. She just said that in an exam situation, in her case it's not a real exam, but that it's quite hard to like remember asking questions or to be like, okay, it's a dialogue. I'm not the one answering questions only.
So you think so much about like the answer you're giving that yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. Maybe you can, I don't really know any solutions to that problem. You could just maybe write it down on your keyboard sheets out there, or like really try and kind of tell yourself before you start the exam, okay, make like everybody who has done oral exams in his or her life definitely knows that asking questions in an exam situation is hard, because in an exam situation you're used to like being asked questions. That's what you do in exams. So they won't expect you to like ask loads of questions, but at least one or two. She tried definitely in the end, but I cut her short. So that was like, as I said, I might not be the ideal person to talk to really, because I love asking questions and like extracting information out of people. Typical teacher kind of thing. She definitely tried in the end, and I think that in a dialogue also asking for like confirmation, as she did, she asked me in the end, right, like kind of, do you agree with me kind of thing. that is also the feature of a dialogue. It would definitely bring you plus points in the interaction kind of thing. But as I said, write down on the keyboard sheets, ask questions or something like that and highlight it. You know, I love highlighters. Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung, she totally, well, I go back to the Aufgabenstellung actually, if my thing lets me open it. That was the task. We fulfilled all of the points really. So there was language, there was racism, without like explicitly mentioning it, but she kind of wrapped it in like a bit more nicely. Kind of there is problems and there is people who are kind of against and so on and so forth. So without really saying that there is racism going on, she was kind of touching upon it. We kind of a little bit neglected the ethnic minorities in Austria, especially the ones in the past. I don't know how much attention you paid during history lessons, but Austria has quite a long history, I think, of like Roma and Sinti, who were not like Romani people as they're called in English, and like kind of an umbrella term, who were not always that well regarded, I think, at the end of the day.
Sure.
There was some, there's also an Austrian playwright wrote a quite famous play, like something that you usually read in German lessons in school, where that was basically about this issue. Obviously there was like a really big Roma and Sinti camp like in the Brixental zone area that caused a lot of problems, or well, not the people but the locals. So if you happen to know something about that, include it as well. The more, knowledge you include, it's your time to shine in the exam and you can kind of show off your history skills if you happen to have them. But we touched upon everything else. So there would be almost full points in the Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung as well. As I said, as the task sheet explicitly says now and in the past, you may lose a point for like not talking about the past situation really, but the rest was of course totally included. So yeah. Anything else? Oh yeah. The example that in this case I kind of gave her because I started talking about Trump, doesn't really fit the topic. Like it's about ethnic minorities in Austria, but it's additional information that you can give, proving that you know what's going on in the world, kind of like mixing, blending it in, kind of, and by the way, there's also, like, Austria doesn't really, especially with the, like, old and established ethnic minorities, there's no troubles going on at the moment, but the Mexican ethnic minority in America is quite old and well established as well, but now there's problems cropping up. If you have discussed the topic in class, or if you happen to know something about it, follow the media, follow Donald Trump's incredibly great tweets about the issue. You may just as well include it. Everything that fits the topic and that proves that you know more than what is on the sheet is a good thing. So, yeah. Ready for the second one? Mm-hmm. Task first. Oh, maybe an easier one because it's a more general topic. I guess ethnic minorities in Austria is a topic where at least a certain level of real background knowledge, like proper knowledge about things, is required. Maybe not so much in racism, because nowadays we just kind of unfortunately happen to know a lot about the topic. Classic situation. Why can I not make it any bigger? Here I can. Because we are all very nice people and we are trying to make the world a better place. You, or in that case her, is a volunteer for Amnesty International and therefore an expert on the topic of racism and human rights and so on and so forth. You have been asked to hold a talk in your school. The examiners in that case are the audience, because we need a fake audience, about the issue of racism and the consequences, as it is an important issue at the moment because of what so many people nowadays feel the need to call mass immigration. So we have kind of a real life situation nowadays, I think the topic of racism is discussed quite frequently. So are ethnic minorities, and so are immigrants. So we have like the relationship to the present, and we have a real life situation that we can also like ask questions about. For example, in the end, I could, for example, ask her if she in real life would support Amnesty International. Why yes, why no, where are the concerns, where's the last point, whatever. So a quite nice role to play, I guess, at the end of the day, because this gives you a lot of like, you can be a very nice person and, you know, spread information about a very nice topic, or a very interesting topic, not so nice but very interesting. I want her to give me a definition of what racism is, about what stereotypes and prejudice are, because that's, well, racism is based a lot on especially stereotypes, I guess, also prejudice really. What the push and pull factors are, that's what they are called nowadays. So why do people leave a country and why do people come to a country? There's a lot of push and pull factors, some I guess more obvious than others. Like, for example, in Austria, the very good or quite good economic situation would definitely be a pull factor. That's why they come to us, pull in the sense of teen and push in, like, why you want to leave a country. And possible reasons for racism, possible in brackets, because I think that it's very hard to talk about reasons for racism because we don't really know. It's just there, I think, or so I have the feeling. So I wonder what she's going to tell me. We have the discussion afterwards. There's a link to a text which is called Health Guide for some weird reason, but in any case it gives you information on how to become a more tolerant society. They're kind of broaching on the issue, what we can do, or how people, parents, teachers, how they can foster tolerance and kind of try and prevent racism right from the start. So that's what the discussion will be about. Can we become a more tolerant society, really? Also, because I thought it would lend itself quite nicely as an example, because football, we all like football, I suppose. Do you like football? She's not impressed. Well, but most of you hopefully like football. And the FIFA, because there is a lot of racism going on in football, that's a fact. That's nothing I made up. Because it's a multicultural sport, it's a multinational sport, there's players being like sold to clubs all over the world. That is why there is a lot of racism going on, and so many very popular football players kind of decided to do something against it. My question is, can football change things? Or can popular people like Cristiano Ronaldo, who would, for example, he's one of the most famous football players in the world. He's in the campaign as well, not in the two pictures, but he's there. Can they change something? That's a question that we might want to discuss. And yeah, I will ask her some questions about her attitude to Amnesty International, to racism and tolerance in general. Let's see where the conversation goes.
All right.
I'm ready when you are, so...
I am.
Good.
Welcome back.
So, who are you this time?
This time my name is Mary and I work in a bank.
Very nice.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of people from other countries in your bank? So are you confronted with ethnic minorities?
Yes, I actually am, since there are quite a lot of people from different countries living in Austria. I actually am confronted with quite a lot of different cultures.
That is a good starting point for today's exam, I suppose, as this is exactly the topic.
All right.
What's the future plans, actually, that you have? Why the A-levels?
I think I'm going to stay in this bank, but if I do the A-levels, then I have more chances to kind of climb up the ladder and maybe get a better position, and yeah, that's why I do it.
So it's for the job mainly? No,
exactly.
No fancy plans of attending university?
Not right now, but we'll see.
You'll see.
Yeah.
Good. And in your situation, you're one of those very nice people who does charity work in her
I am.
scarce free time. So you're working for Amnesty International and obviously know a lot about racism because, well, that's what you are confronted with on a daily basis. Could you, because of your job, you probably have a working definition for yourself what racism is. Could you let us know?
Well, to me, racism basically is kind of a fear of the unknown, if you might say so. A fear of people that look different, that speak a different language, that behave differently from yourself, and that's why you kind of don't like them, or that's why you develop a feeling of fear maybe, and that's what racism is to me. And racism also is very often linked to stereotypes and prejudice. Which I think people usually know what that is, but if we kind of look at someone and basically judge a book by its cover and just don't really want to get to know a person, but just think about, oh, I've heard that, and I think this kind of person or that culture is like that. I don't want that. I don't like that. Then that's what a stereotype and is, and that's also what prejudices do to us, and that's how kind of racism forms, I guess. But in spite of racism being a big thing, I think in many countries actually, not just in Austria.
True.
There's still people all over the world going to different countries, immigrating into different countries, and there's lots of different reasons for that. There's a few factors that can either be like positive or negative, and if they're positive, it's a good it's a country that people want to go to, and if they're negative, it's a country people want to leave. So, for example, the economy. If you have a good economy, like in Austria, like in, I don't know, maybe Great Britain, in Sweden, Switzerland, then people, of course, want to be there. People want to have the money as well. People want to maybe also get the good jobs that are linked to the good economy. And then something else is the good social system. If there's a good social system, like again in Austria, it's of course very good for you if you're ill, if you have a problem, then somebody will help you. Not like, for example, in the US, it's not that good unless you have lots of money. But yeah, the US is obviously still a country that many people want to immigrate to, so that can depend. As I said, living conditions, workplace, so all of those like general facts that have to be right for your life to be nice, have to be, of course, good in a country for that country to be attractive for people, kind of. And so those are those push factors or those pull factors that people think about when they want to move or when they want to move countries. And as I said before, there's of course lots of there can be a lot of racism in countries where lots of people immigrate to, because there's good economy and good social system and a good financial kind of situation, and it's quite hard to say where that racism comes from. I think we don't really know, but as I said before, it's maybe because of people speaking a different language, people looking a different way, people just being generally different to you, and that kind of causing that feeling of racism. And that's how, or maybe that extreme feeling, because we all have that feeling that, oh, this person is different. I think we all have that inside. That person is different. Can I trust them? Can I not trust them? I think you can say as much as you want that you're so open and that you're so kind of, worldly, but you'll still, that's just a general feeling that you have inside. That's nothing bad. It's even if there's a person that kind of seems wrong to you and it looks the same, but kind of has that that vibe, that bad vibe, then it's just a feeling of self-protection, isn't it? And so it's that topic is quite a difficult one. Don't you agree, or how do you feel about that?
Definitely. That's why the possible is in brackets. Exactly. Because nobody. I would just feel that you pointed out how good compared to other countries Austria's economy is. I just always wonder why we are not willing to share, because we know that there's so many people who are not that well off and who don't get medical treatment if they have to, and so on and so forth. But then, I guess there's some, more overpowering factors. Would you say, because you mentioned fear as one of the, which I think is the one reason that you can
the main
point
reason.
down, there is a lot of people who are scared of, the unknown, as you put it. Do you think that religion plays a role as well?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It definitely plays a role, but then again, there's people of the same religion that come and people are still kind of opposed to them. Not that much, maybe, but it does play a big role, but it's not the main thing.
Okay. So, I guess we mentioned the most important things. There was something else that I wanted to ask you, but I can't remember, which is really sad.
Maybe you will.
Well, you mentioned, or we kind of established a few points why people have prejudice stereotypes and are turn racist in the end, basically. Any ideas how we could become a more tolerant society, or can we? Is there a way to teach people?
I think there definitely is. For one, just kind of, it sounds a bit mean, but maybe get a bit of a better education, read more books, watch more international films, even that. That's how you will realize that it's not a bad thing. Other cultures or other nationalities are not a bad thing. And so that's a quite easy way to become a more tolerant person. Also, for me, traveling is a really good way. If you can afford it, travel a lot, travel the world, get to know other countries, other cultures, other nationalities, different food, and that's how you will get used to people not thinking the same way you are and becoming more tolerant. And that's really the main things. I think also try to be more open and talk to people that are kind of near to you, that are not from your country but live in your country, ethnic minorities or just immigrants. Try to talk to them about how they feel, what their views are, what their religion is, why they feel that way, or why they have chosen their religion, or that's I think also a very interesting way to communicate and get some different views.
Would you say that this is something that should be talked about in school as well?
Definitely.
I guess if you do it, you have to start young. Should it be an issue in primary school, or? I
think so. I think it's maybe quite hard to say how exactly you should include that, but maybe even just watching a film with kind of, I don't know, different cultures in it, or looking at a school book that has people of different colors or of different nationalities. That's how you could start, just saying look, we're just all humans, we're all the same, but we look different, or we think different. Maybe there's some games that you could play. I think it can be done, definitely, and I think it would be very important.
Was it an issue when you were in school? Was that something that you would discuss
in lessons school? Or
just general?
I think we didn't really talk about that a lot in school, with the teachers, but there definitely were. You could definitely see the groups of ethnic minorities, especially in primary school, because I think children that age can be very cruel or can form groups quite easily, and so there definitely were kind of the Serbians or the Yugoslavians and the other people, but then again there were also the cool ones and the not so cool and all of that. And so yeah, definitely.
So
but yeah.
But I think we could agree that it's a thing that you may want to like kind of address in school.
Yeah, definitely.
A second approach, because I guess it's a very trendy thing to get celebrities do something for good causes.
Yeah.
In this case, in the picture you have Lionel Messi and Neymar, two of the most expensive and also most well-known and best football players in the world. Can they change something? Like if, let's say, Messi, Neymar, Ronaldo, Boateng, all those like players who play in countries where they are ethnic minorities, really, can they change something?
I think they can. I think especially regarding younger people, children, they can, because especially children, I think, look up to these football players and hear what they say and the message that they convey. And I think if they hear from them that you, for example, have to say no to racism, you have to tolerate other people, you have to be a bit more open-minded, then I think they might be. I think it definitely could change something. Or how would you feel about that?
Well, I guess I think that racism in football is generally an issue because there is such a strong feeling for. I think it's always very much connected to like patriotism kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you get all those players from somewhere dark-skinned and so I think there's a lot of conflict in it. Just per se, but then there's also a lot of potential because I think that especially people like Ronaldo, who everyone kind of admires,
exactly.
And if he says, "Well, racism is terrible," then or Neymar, who is most expensive football player in the world,
maybe not so much like grown-ups, but especially children, and those are the ones that will then go on to be the next grown-up. So that was what I was hoping for actually. That it would. I think it's too late for the present generation. But, exactly. But the children,
would be a thing.
I think so as well.
As you're working for Amnesty International, are you running projects in school, for example, where you talk about racism?
Yes, actually. In school, I have started going from class to class and talking to people about racism, or not so much racism as much as talking to them about the different cultures that they know or the people that they surround themselves with, and if they're all from the same culture or if they're from different cultures and nationalities, and how they feel about that, and if they even think about that as like, oh, she's from there and he's from there, or if they just think about that as a general, like, we're all humans. And I think it's getting better and better. Okay. I feel like as I go to the younger and younger ones, it's getting better and better, as I said.
So you see hope at the end of the tunnel, basically. Like space for improvement for...
Yes, I'm staying positive.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah.
A very nice note. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Where are you? Yeah, that's the right one.
There I am. So again, that was the two pictures that I was talking about, or that we were talking about, because it might not make an awful lot of sense if you haven't seen them. So here we have Lionel Messi and Neymar. As I said, both playing in countries where there are foreigners, really, Argentina and Brazil, and they're playing in Europe, both of them. So I guess that could have an impact. I think that was the pictures that I was talking about. The FIFA saying no to racism was a quite popular campaign for a while. After, well, it didn't start with no reason. It started because racism was an increasing issue in the last World Championships. That's why the FIFA the football organization or association, then said, well, we have to do something against it. If you Google it, there's actually a lot of very, very famous players taking part. Also inactive ones, so people are not playing anymore. You may want to look it up for the racism topic because it makes a great example of campaigns that were kind of started and that were kind of trying to counteract racism a little bit. A quick analysis, but there won't be much to say really because she learned her lesson well, and in the fluency in the interaction thing, she was now really actively asking questions as well. Under the same premises, basically, that it is not very easy to talk to me in a dialogue, I suppose. So that was what actively asking questions should look like. Well done. In the spectrum of spoken language, one thing that I want to point out now, because there was not much spectrum to talk about in the previous exam. There was spectrum, of course, but there was nothing special. She now used a very nice metaphor, which always goes down well because it kind of proves that you have studied your vocab not only on a surface basis, but also a little bit in depth. That was the you shouldn't or you can't judge a book by its covers, which is a metaphor that exists in German.
Not sure.
Well, anyway, you know what it means, not only by looking at a book. In that case, you can't tell whether or not it's good. That's what the metaphor, the message that the metaphor is supposed to convey. Which is only this metaphor or some phrasal verbs, you know what phrasal verbs are, all the combinations that we have to learn by heart at some stage, all the combinations that to look, for example, can have, to look forward, to look after, to look for, and so on and so forth. That's phrasal verbs. Some phrasal verbs and maybe a metaphor or two, especially with metaphors, maybe a bit harder, but one or two well-placed metaphors give you extra points for the spectrum, because metaphors and phrasal verbs prove that, well, they pertain or they are part of the B2 level of oral exams that or in spoken language that you should reach. So I guess this goes down quite well in the exam. One thing that she did, here's the exam, she kind of I first asked for a definition, then for the push and pull factors, and then for possible reasons for racism. Timna kind of talked about the reasons for racism already in the first bullet point, which is okay, because in a presentation, so you have to touch upon all the 3 bullet points so as to, where is it? So as to get high points in task achievement in Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung. But you can definitely kind of mix them a little bit as long as it is clear that you are talking about reasons now. So if the bullet point says talk about possible reasons for racism, and you kind of make it part of bullet point 1 or bullet point 2, say so. Clearly point out, okay, and possible reasons for racism are, so that the interlocutor knows that the bullet point was actually there and that you get, the points for Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung. So yes, Erfüllung der Aufgabenstellung, done, fluency in the interaction, done, spectrum, very nice, metaphors, phrasal verbs was all there. Accuracy, of course, so yeah, I guess that was a quite good exam. I would give you your A-level pass sheet kind of thing, of course. Yeah, I think that's it for tonight. So this was the 2 trial exams on racism. As I said, next time or in the next oral exam session, which will be in, I don't know, a fortnight or 3 weeks time, I will show you the interlocutor's sheet and try to assess her performance according to the interlocutor sheet so that you guys know what it looks like. Yeah, that was all from me, us in that case. I hope there was some new input for you or some good, valuable input for you. See you next week. Have a look at the links because they give you some nice input on the aspects that we were trying to talk about tonight or touching about tonight. Thank you very much and good night.